Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled Petty Candy Revenge. I work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. Essentially, it's helping people with disabilities find funds or accommodations for work, school, training, transport, etc. While introverted, I generally like working with people, and when I've had enough and need to recharge my social battery, I can shut the door and the office is quiet, despite the walls being paper thin. Here comes, we'll call her Barb, who is loud. A yell talker. She's also smothering, kind of condescending, talks loudly to herself constantly, and just generally rubs me the wrong way. Whatever, she's harmless, right? I keep a glass dish full of candy on my desk that is for any clients, co-workers, custodial staff, whoever. I am not reimbursed for this, I just like being nice. Plus, it allows me to be friendly without having to be very social. It makes a crappy day better when I see a coworker stop by for a piece of chocolate or a lifesaver and cheer themselves up. Most people take a few, I don't care, but Barb completely and absolutely abused it. She regularly picks out all the red lifesavers for herself, as well as the Dove milk chocolates. And I mean all. She would take upwards of 10 pieces a day every time she's here. Only 2 to 3 times a week, thankfully, of each. Now it's too far because it ducks everyone else over, including my clients. I started leaving some on her desk specifically for her to try to alleviate the problem. It kind of did, for a little bit, until a couple of weeks ago when I had to go home sick with a migraine around noon. I came back the next day and found my candy dish absolutely ravaged, and every single red lifesaver in Dove Square had been taken, leaving behind mostly other flavors and some Hershey Kisses. That idiot. I did the math and realized she had eaten about $9 worth of my candy in a matter of 3 weeks, and never offered to repay or refill it. She also sucks on them very loudly and smacks her mouth almost violently. So, I decided on the days she's in, suddenly the dish is only filled with everything but the red lifesavers and Dove. She's been rifting through the dish since, disappointed. I put them back out when she's gone. I think my coworkers have already noticed, since now they seem to stop by more on those days too. Super petty, but I don't care. Selfish a-holes don't get enabled to screw over everybody else. Not if I can help it. The next story is titled, Got Revenge on an Abuser. One Friday night, I went to a party. I talked about a girl I met on the beach while I was walking my dog. One girl was very drunk and said, "Is she fat?" She doesn't usually fat shame people, but I invited her to softball and she was making a stupid joke. To which I said, "No, she's chubby, but cute. I like chubby girls." A guy, Dick, overheard me and thought I called his girlfriend fat. I don't know how such a big miscommunication could happen, but it did. I didn't know this, and 2 days later, Sunday, we had a softball game. I didn't play, but while walking out, Dick ran up to me, said my name, and swung at the side of my head, and I went flying. Just for perspective, I'm 5'9", 115 pounds. Dick worked out, was 6 foot or over, and probably double my weight. My glasses broke, my tooth was chipped, etc. I was scared and didn't know what reason he would punch me over, as I never had interactions with him. I ran away, called the cops later. They are dragging their feet, saying they can't find him, but I want the money for my damages. It has been 6 months. I even had an eyewitness go to the station and make a statement. I asked Dick for the money, and I said I don't want anything fancy, just my glasses replaced. Dick said he'd give me an apology, but no money. Even though he did it in front of 15 people, so he's not denying he punched me, he's telling other people still that I called his girlfriend fat. He was not part of that conversation, but 5 people who were all say I didn't call his girlfriend fat or even talk about her, so that's only his opinion. So basically, only he, of all the people there, thinks I called his girlfriend fat. He also admits to hitting me, although he's told people it was open hand, even though many witnesses claim otherwise. He still won't pay for the damages he caused. So, cue revenge time. I live in a US territory. This territory is not a fan of mainlanders coming in and acting like they own the place. 6 months after the altercation, he started posting pro-mainlander stuff and is trying to be the face of why mainlanders are good for the territory. Also, insulting a local journalist. So, I knew there was a very strong movement against this, and after putting up his videos for a week, he got tons of hateful comments. So I messaged some of these people and gave them the police reports, chat logs, etc., and now he basically has an army of locals who hate outsiders trying to expose him. He also doesn't seem to be afraid. He has everything on his Facebook profile public. I had a hunch and messaged his ex. She said he was abusive, so I have a lot of dirt to expose him with. Except, I'm just passing the information along to the people who want to do it. The next story is titled, Peeping Lady Neighbor Gets Flashed. So, many moons ago, I moved into an apartment, 2nd floor. At the time, I was about 21, and I'm a guy. Nice place and decent part of town. Not long after I moved in, I noticed one of my 2nd floor neighbors kept trying to investigate my living room, through, around, any way possible past my curtains. I need to tell the layout of the apartment before I go any further. From front to back, I had a sunroom, fully inside the house, but windows everywhere in this room that gets a lot of light, and faces the street and neighbors across the street, church, and church parking lot where we all parked for street cleaning. Past the sunroom was the living room. From there, into the kitchen, then to the hallway, which leads to the bathroom and both bedrooms, master bedroom being the last room in the back that also leads to a porch for our apartment. So, back to the story. I would always be nice to anyone and would chat here and there with most of the neighbor ladies, which were all nice. All except for one. She thought she was the queen of the street and had to know what everyone was doing at any time. She would constantly try to look through my windows to see what was going on in my apartment. She was about 65 years old or so. I would always see her craning her neck and head around to see into my apartment. I would try to ask her to stop, but she would never answer her door. Finally, after about 6 months of this, I decided to give her something to look at. So, one morning, I got a shower, put on a robe, and went out to the sunroom. I always had the curtains closed at night, and if I was undressed. I looked around the street and everywhere I could see to make sure no one was out and looking, but mainly wanted to make sure she was trying to investigate my house. There she was, craning her neck, trying to look through my closed curtains. Me, still having my robe around me, opened the curtains, saw her again, trying to investigate my apartment, opened my robe in full view in the middle of that window. I thought she had a heart attack since her face contorted and she grabbed her chest, LOL. Of course, her being a Karen called the cops to try to get me arrested. Well, the cops show up at her place, then come over to mine. I had gotten dressed by this time, so went downstairs to open the door and talk to them since I already knew what it was about. Cop 1. Yeah, we got a report of you standing naked in front of your window? Me. Yeah, wanna know why? I'll tell ya. Ever since I moved into my apartment, that old hag has been damn near breaking her neck to try to investigate my apartment every day. Me and my roommate have tried to ask her to stop, but she never answers her door. I finally got tired of her being a peeping Tom and gave her something to look at, and before you say anything, no one else was around when I did it. It's not my fault her 65-year-old ass can't handle seeing what I have. Cop 1 and 2 laughing their asses off. Cop 1 trying to catch his breath. Okay. I'll go talk to her and tell her that she can be arrested for peeping and making a false report. Do you want to press charges? Me. Nah, I think she learned her lesson. But if she didn't, she'll get it again. But next time, it'll be a little more than she is going to bargain for. Cop 1 and 2. Laugh again. Just make sure no one's around you if you must do that again. They left, walked across the street, and about 10 minutes later, they left, still laughing. She never tried to investigate my house again. Yes, this happened, and yes, I did that. I have nothing to hide and don't really care. If you want to break your neck to investigate my house like you think you can, then don't be surprised at what you see, and don't complain about what you see when I finally get tired of that and I flash you stark-ass naked. The next story is titled, Evil Ex Tried to Outrun Bills. A little over 30 years back, I was just out of an abusive relationship. I was 20, he was a decade older, and he was a human leech. He lived off me, and occasionally my parents, for a year. When I finally told him to go away, he broke into my apartment, threw me into a wall, and tried to take my cat. He was truly vile. Shortly after I was shed of him, I took a job as a receptionist with a bill collector agency. This was when computers were first beginning to be used. I was told there were boxes of bills in the back that hadn't been entered as they had gone into collection before the computers were installed. They weren't so old as to be uncollectible, but they weren't the priority. Knowing what a deadbeat he was, I used a lunch hour one day to look. Sure enough, he had more than $10,000 total in bills from a dozen different businesses. So I entered them all into the computer with his current contact information, including the jobs he was working where he was being paid under the table. I assigned it to the agency's most aggressive collector. He even let me listen in on the first call he made to the guy. It was immensely satisfying. And even better was a few months later when the ex left town to go live with his sister. The next story is titled 2 Short Stories of My Family's Revenge. My grandfather was a World War II veteran and a high school chemistry teacher. He had another teacher ask to borrow $500 back in the 70s. Later, when the payment was past due and the guy seemed like he was ghosting him, my grandfather showed up at the school with a cherry picker and pulled that dude's engine out. He came out to start his car, popped his hood, and was horrified to find his engine gone. My grandfather said, "When you pay me back, you'll get your engine back." And he did. I had a great uncle that was a penny pincher and was the type of man to store his cash in the walls. He went to a Cadillac dealership to buy a car and walked around for nearly an hour without being waited on by a single salesman. He then walked across the street to a Buick dealership and a salesman ran up to him and greeted him. My uncle then said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy 2 Buicks cash today, but you've got to run across the street and let them know how they lost out on a sale." This kinda reminds me of the scene in Pretty Woman. Moral of the story, hardworking men don't always dress nice. The next story is titled, "Sure, you can redeem your lottery ticket in 5s. This is possibly the tiniest petty revenge ever. I work at the East Coast's favorite goose-themed convenience store, and I was helping on the register. A middle-aged man goes to hand me his lottery voucher, and as I went to take the ticket from him, he snatched it back and quite aggressively said, "I want this in 5s. "Sure, you'll get your $50 in 5s, no problem." So I scanned his ticket and then proceeded to count out $50 in 5s from the register as slowly as I could. Usually when counting out a lottery cash out for somebody, I count it once again in front of the customer so we both know that I'm giving them the right amount. And that's exactly what I did. Slower than the first. Duck you and your 5s. I hope this brings a smile to all my fellow cashiers. The next story is titled, "I'm Not Proud." I had this younger guy I fell absolutely in love with. We never met in person, which should have been my first clue because we lived in the same town. He acted like he was into me, and that he wanted to meet. We had been talking for months. And during those months, we would talk dirty on the phone. I would send him nudes and videos daily, because I foolishly thought he cared about me like I did him. Well, one day I go to talk to him and I'm blocked. I also learn he has a girlfriend, who he had been seeing while I was sending stuff. So essentially, I was being used for free porn. I was devastated. I decided if he wanted nudes, he'll get more nudes. So I posted his snap on every single gay subreddit I could find. I would talk to these guys, getting them all turned on, then send his snap. I guess he started getting dozens, then hundreds of dick pics and loads of cumshot videos. He unblocked me just to yell at me because it had to be me. I denied it and blocked him, and continued to share his snap for days until I got over it. The only thing I feel bad for is the gay men who got catfished and led on. The last story is titled, "Rotten Meat Deserved a Lipstick." Lately, I recalled other stories from a recently deceased family member. As she can't tell it to anyone anymore, I thought I would share it. 3 kids who are still alive don't matter in this story, so I mention only the ones who matter. No dialogue, I wasn't born back then, and Auntie didn't recall any to tell me. She was a young mom then, and told me this as an old granny. During the 1960s, this lady, let's call her Auntie, had 4 kids and a husband. They were buying fast food from a stall in town, as kids were hungry and they still had a long time before getting home. These stalls were like metal carriages, easily moved around with a car, and had a window for selling food items. The youngest kid, I recall then 4 years old, had trouble eating the hot snack, a grilled sausage. Others ate fast and noticed he had only taken 1 bite. Auntie asked him what's the matter, and the little kid said it tastes bad. Auntie tasted it, and the sausage was rotten. They turned around, having only walked a few feet away from the stall, but the metal window was closed. Auntie's husband started banging the closed window, yelling that his son got a rotten sausage. Not a peep from inside. Now, Auntie believed that the guy selling food did this on purpose, getting rid of the rotten meat products by giving them to children not old enough to tattle. Auntie wasn't one to value makeup, but as her husband sure was, she had a bright red lipstick in her handbag. So, after trying to get the guy to just grill a good sausage for the boy with no success, Auntie went petty. Took her lipstick and wrote with huge letters, "This place sells rotten meat," right to the metal covering before they left. They weren't well off, so the little boy didn't get anything to eat before they got home, but Auntie was glad he didn't get ill from the one bite he took. The owner of the food stall painted the metal, but a greasy red lipstick text was still visible. All the people in this story have passed, so I'm comfortable telling their story after hearing it at least once a month for over 10 years. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.